All right, here we go. Hey everybody, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of FilmBrony Podcast, episode 6. Um, I'm Nick as always, and here with me is the creator of the podcast. Introduce yourself.
Hi there, this is BoyThunder Productions, also known as FilmBrony. Today on the FilmBrony Podcast, we have a bit of topics to go over. First off, I have some Blu-rays to showcase, then one current review, and some classic movie reviews. And then I'm going to read an article
I have
about...
one.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I also have an article about what happened to Josh Trank's Fan 4 stick. I'm also gonna list some wasted opportunities I felt like Rise of Skywalker had, and to cap it all off, I'm going to give my own ranking of the Best Picture Oscar winners from the 2000s. Since I'm planning on making this a series after last episode's 2010's Best Picture winners. Okay, you said you had something?
Okay. And I do. Yeah, and then I'm going to be doing, and as soon as Soren is done reviewing his classic movie reviews, I'll be reviewing one. I'll be talking about. I'll be reviewing a classic movie from 1995 that's been considered to be by many to be one of the greatest films ever made.
Okay. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, like last.
And before we do, I just want to say this. I do apologize. I'm sorry. I just gotta say something really quick. For those watching, I do apologize that I'm not going to be talking that much throughout the podcast. It's just after one, like I'm like broken inside. I'm not going to mention what happened. Just something tragic happened that I just do that literally broke me today. And if you don't hear me talking a lot, that's probably why. So I do apologize for this, guys. Anyway, you were saying.
Anyways, with all that said, let's get started. So like last time, I'm going to fast. I'm gonna go through these Blu-rays rather quickly since we have a lot of topics to go over and little time. Okay, so on my first Blu-ray, I have a movie based on a true story, The 33.
That was a solid movie.
Next, I have a double feature, American History X and A History of Violence.
Nice. Both great movies right there.
Next is a classic from 2014, Boyhood.
Boyhood was definitely one of the best from that year for sure.
Next, I have another double feature, Face Off and Snake Eyes.
Nice.
Next, I have is the Fast and Furious 7 movie collection and Fate of the Furious.
Nice.
Next is the movie that people consider to be the least horrible Dr. Seuss movie out there, Horton Hears a Who.
I remember seeing that film in theaters actually, and I really enjoyed it, and I watched it again, and I still really enjoyed it to this day.
Yeah, me too. Next is an early MCU film, The Incredible Hulk.
Nice.
And
really good one.
And as you can see, I got this rare one with the green cover and this pretty cool slip cover. Pretty hard to find, actually.
Oh yeah, it is. Judging by what you just showed me, I can only imagine how hard it is to find.
Next, I have Paper Towns.
Real good movie.
Next is a movie that I know least didn't get the greatest praise out there, but I found it cheap at Dollar Tree, and I decided to check it out for myself. The Reader.
Nice. Nice.
The movie that put Tom Cruise on the map, Risky Business.
A great movie from the 80s for sure.
For my next Blu-ray, Brie Larson does get a bit of flack for playing Captain Marvel, but from what I've heard, she's actually a pretty solid actress. Case in point, her Oscar-winning role in Room, not The Room, just to let you know.
Right. I know what you're talking about. That was one of the best movies for me. It was such a powerful film.
Mm-hmm. Next is Richard Linklater's animated film, A Scanner Darkly.
A really, really overlooked film. I really, really love that film.
Next is an 80s Best Picture winner, Terms of Endearment.
That is one of my all-time favorite movies. Shirley MacLaine and Deborah Winger are both amazing in that film.
Mm-hmm. And I
definitely one of my favorites from the 1980s.
Okay. So I haven't seen this influential movie, but I decided to get it for cheap just in time for an upcoming sequel in the future. I'm done.
Nice. Top Gun is really, really good. I highly recommend giving that one a watch.
Okay. And last but not least, The Way Back.
One of the most underappreciated films of 2013 and one of the best of that year too. It's funny, heartwarming, and just amazing.
So that's it for my Blu-rays, and now for my reviews. So like I said, I have one current movie review, and then I have 3 classic movie reviews. But let's get the current movie review, shall we? So as you've seen in the last episode, 2020 was a pretty lackluster year for animated films. I mean, sure, Onward was okay, but then you got 2 disappointing sequels, Trolls World Tour and Fantasy 2. But then while I was browsing around Netflix one day, I came across this little-known movie from Netflix that I feel like deserves a bit of a look, and that is Netflix's The Willoughbys.
I heard about that one. I'll get a chance to watch that when I get some free time.
Okay, so in case you don't know, it's about these 4 kids living in an urban town in this pretty old house, and apparently their parents have been neglecting them for pretty much all their lives. So they decided that it would be best to just dump them at a dangerous vacation and just live their lives on their own. But little did they know that their parents hired a babysitter for them, and now she has to teach them the ways about family, and now she has to teach them ways about family. Will will they learn their lesson? Will they learn to appreciate their parents? Well, I'm not going to spoil it for you. So what I really dug about this movie is this movie's characters and style. I mean, it really reminds you of the animation style. Really reminds you of an Aardman movie, and the writing. I felt it was pretty macabre, like a Roald Dahl book, which I really dug. I mean, there are some pretty predictable elements, and a few obvious cliches that this movie goes for, but I feel like it was all worth it. So I highly recommend seeking out the Willoughbys if you get a chance. And so overall, I give the Willoughbys a 7 out of
Nice.
10. So since what closed down movie theaters and delayed some of the biggest movies, and so some of the movies that that skipped theaters and went straight to VOD didn't really appeal to me. I decided to take matters into my own hands and review older movies for a while, at least until the whole pandemic settles down.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Tenet, the Christopher Nolan movie, to come to theaters. In July.
Yep, me too. So for my first classic movie review on this channel, we're gonna go over one of the very first, one of the most influential, and yet one of the most controversial movies of all time, D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. Okay, so a lot of people have been lashing on this movie for its blatant racism and glorification of the Triple K, but let me just say it right now. It doesn't happen until like the last third of the movie, because the first 2/3 of the movie were actually pretty entertaining, with since D.W. Griffith really added in some new techniques with its camera work, with its editing, with its storytelling. It's just in the aforementioned last act where it all went downhill from there. I mean, I'll say this. If you dislike this movie due to the racism, that's fine. My biggest recommendation is if you want to view this for a historical standpoint, just watch the first 2 acts. And right when the movie says end of the first, end of part 1, just switch off the movie and go watch something else. So yeah, that's my take on Birth of a Nation.
All right.
Next classic movie review, I'm going to review all 3 movies in the Matrix trilogy.
All right, let's.
Okay, so first movie first. Now it's gotten a bit of backlash recently from people who find it overrated. Like Nostalgia Craig recently posted his review up against it, but and I will say this: I can't say I did. Let me rephrase it. I can't say I don't understand why people hate it, since it is pretty silly at sometimes and pretty self-serious at others. But for me, I think I really overlook it all, because how do I explain this? It really influenced action movies and sci-fi movies as a whole, with its special effects, its writing, the acting from Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, etc. Top it all off with the heartbeat and sound. Top it all off.
Not to mention its story. Its story.
Yeah, the story was more than just a traditional action story. It's actually more fleshed out than that, giving us questions like, is this reality really reality, and such forth, and will So yeah, and I even though some people hate it, I really love it, and it's currently one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time.
Mine too.
Now we get to the sequel, Matrix Reloaded, and we can all agree this is where the cracks start to show for a lot of people. I mean, there are some weird moments, like the brawl fight was obviously blatant CG, and that sex scene with Neo and Trinity was pretty awkwardly shot, almost like it was stripped out of a porn movie.
Yeah.
But to me, I think the positives outweigh the negatives. The action, music, and direction are just as top notch as ever, and I really feel that as a pretty good lead up to the final act of the series, at least what we thought would be the final act of the series until next year, but that's another story. And for if you complain about that architect scene being super long and complicated, come on, it's not that complicated if you actually pay attention to it. I mean, I followed it fine. So yeah, I personally like this movie, but if you really didn't, just go ahead and take a blue pill. I won't judge.
Yeah.
And now we get to Matrix Revolutions. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, but I might like this a bit more than Reloaded, to be honest. I mean, sure, it's still not as good as the original because nothing tops that. But I really appreciate how much of a darker turn this movie turns, and the stakes were really high for our heroes, and it all led up to a pretty sleek climax between Neo and the Agent Smith virus, in my opinion. But if you found it anticlimactic, that's fine. I understand. So yeah,
I thought it was really neat. I thought it was really cool.
So yeah, that's my review of the Matrix movies. As my ratings, Matrix 1 is a 10 out of 10, Reload is a 7, and Revolutions is an 8.
Okay.
And now for my final classic movie review. I just saw this recently, AI Artificial Intelligence. So, as you may know, this movie was originally the brainchild of influential filmmaker Stanley Kubrick, based on the short story Super Toys Last All Summer Long by Brian Aldiss. For the longest time, he's been trying to get it off the ground for so many years, and right when he started pre-production on it in the late 90s, he suddenly passed away. So, fellow filmmaker Steven Spielberg decided to take matters into his own hands, and there's his close friend's magnum opus, finally releasing it in the summer of 2001. But that's all neat and all. But here's the problem: Kubrick and Spielberg are two pretty polar opposites. Kubrick has a dark, slow-burning style in his films. I mean, Spielberg can do dramas. Don't get me wrong, but his movies are mostly hopeful and upbeat. So yeah, you can probably see my biggest problem with AI. Okay, let me elaborate a little bit. The first hour I thought was really great. I thought the idea of William Hurt creating the robot shop David to replace his son, only for that same son to come back and feud with him over his parents, was pretty compelling, leaving us with questions about David's humanity or his lack thereof. The second hour was a bit clunkier than the last one. The story was still really good, with David meeting to law to guide him to the Blue Fairy through various obstacles, so that he can hopefully become a real boy just for the sake of his mother. But there are some weird scenes during this scene. There are some real scenes sprinkled throughout, like the whole cyber destruction derby, and which completely fell out of place in both a Spielberg movie and a Kubrick story. Also, why was Chris Rock in that movie? Why was Chris Rock in that scene? Really?
I will admit, that was probably the weakest part of the whole film. I love the movie. I know we have a disagreement on it because I think it's really underrated. I think it's really underrated in my opinion. But I could see why some people wouldn't like like it. And yeah, that Chris Walken scene was a bit unnecessary.
So yeah, now how that second act ended is how I feel like the movie should have ended, with an ambiguous downer with David constantly asking the statue of the Blue Fairy to make him a real boy. Let me tell you, that would have been a gut punch of an ending. But then, okay, I'm gonna get to spoilers for the next few minutes. I'm gonna put this Pinkie Pie doll in front of the screen and issue a spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen this movie, please mute the video right here. When I finish spoiler talk, I will remove this plus from the screen, and you'll be safe from spoilers. But then after that second half, we suddenly get a narrator who was absent throughout the previous 2 hours. Then we cut to 2,000 years later, where aliens come in, revive David and his mother, and they spend one last happy day together. Wow, if that's not a sappy ending, I don't really know what is. Okay, let's take on spoilers now. So yeah, I will. Okay, so yeah, despite some really great effects, what I felt like was Haley Joel Osment's second best performance behind The Sixth Sense, and some pretty music from John Williams. I feel like AI was messed up a script, and Kubrick deserved better. Not the worst movie ever, but certainly not the best.
Understandable.
So yeah, that's it for my classic movie reviews. And Nick, you said you had a movie to discuss.
Yes, yes. I have this right here. This is the movie I'll be discussing today. It's Leaving Las Vegas. I just recently watched this one over the weekend, and my God, this movie is absolutely one of my all-time favorite movies. So for those who don't know what Leaving Las Vegas is, it's based on the novel by it's based on the novel by John O'Brien uh, about um about Nicolas Cage's character who's a suicidal alcoholic, and then he comes across this girl who's a prostitute. She's played by Elizabeth Shue, and and while this movie isn't really a romance movie, I mean it does have a few romantic elements in it, but it's more of like a Nicolas Cage's character and the downfall of his character since he's like drunk. And let me tell you, this is one of the most powerful and emotional films I've ever seen. Nicolas Cage absolutely deserved that Oscar first. My God, this is unlike anything that Nicolas Cage has performed in his film career. And like I said, even though this was back in 1995, it still holds up to this day as being one of the best movies ever made, and it absolutely deserves it. This is Nicolas Cage's best performance, in my opinion. And Elizabeth Shue, she's also terrific as the prostitute. Without getting into spoilers, when they reveal what happened to Elizabeth Shue's character within the film, I actually felt really sorry for her in the film, and not to mention the script is absolutely terrific. It's filled with amazing dialogue and characters that feel like real people. The story was absolutely terrific. The directing by Mike Figgis, which he also wrote the script for this movie, was absolutely terrific. It's very, very well directed. I should also mention that the soundtrack is one of my all-time favorites. Combining like jazz and Sting. That's a nice touch in my opinion. It's very well. This was shot in 16 millimeter instead of the usual 35 millimeter, and holy shit, it looks so authentic and real. That's what I really loved about Leaving Las Vegas, on how real it looks. It's well edited. It's very well paced. There are a couple of funny moments in it. Excuse me. But oh my god, the ending. Again, I don't want to spoil what happens, but if for those who have seen the ending, you know what I'm talking about. The ending to Leaving Las Vegas had me bawling my eyes out. It's just that emotional. It's like one of the most emotional endings I've ever seen. By the time it was over, like I said, by the time it was over, I was bawling my eyes out. And this movie does a fantastic job on representing on how alcohol can sometimes kill you if you drink too much of it. And that's what I really loved about this movie. The way it handled its moral, its message, and its story. This is one of my top 20. Leaving Las Vegas is powerful, exhilarating, riveting, and emotional. And it features Nicolas Cage giving out his very best performance of his career. And he absolutely deserved that Oscar. In my opinion, and there are some great movies there were some amazing movies in 1995, like The American President, the 20 film Braveheart. I really love the film. Ron Howard's Apollo 13.
Toy Story, Babe.
Let's see. Toy Story, Babe. The documentary film Crumb about Robert Crumb. And Ang Lee's Sense and Sensibility and Persuasion. But in my opinion, I feel that Leaving Las Vegas is 1995's like biggest masterpiece. Next to films like I mentioned Crumb, Toy Story, Babe. This is brilliant filmmaking, and for those who have not seen it, please check this out as soon as you can. And my God, I was really looking forward to talking about this movie because of how much it really won me over. Leaving Las Vegas is one of my all-time favorite movies, and without it deserves an 11 out of 10.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my review of Leaving Las Vegas.
In case you're wondering why I've been silent, that's because I haven't seen the movie yet, and hearing Nick praise the shit out of this movie just made me want to watch this movie even more.
You should.
Mm-hmm. But now we get from a critically praised movie to a movie that didn't really please anyone. And that's 2015's Fant 4 Stick.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was disappointing to say the least. It wasn't the worst movie of 2015. I mean, I've seen worse. Like my worst movie of 2015 was 50 Shades of Grey, and then my runner-up was Gem and the Holograms. But it's just disappointing coming from some potential it had. So anyway, you were saying?
So yeah, It's no secret that Josh Trank and Fox really butted heads as to the production of this movie, and it really showed in the final product. But right here, I have an article all about from Screen Rant on every Fantastic Four 2015 disaster detailed revealed by the director.
I read an article too. It's just sad that this ended up being the final product and what the director of that film originally intended to have. It's just sad.
Yeah, it really was. But what exactly happened? Let's find out. Okay, number one, Fox always planned to shoot the ending in reshoots. One of the reasons that Fantastic Four's final cut feels so cobbled together, which also happens to be the explanation for Kate Mara's terrible blonde wig in certain scenes, is that by the time principal photography was finished, the movie's ending hadn't been shot at all. At the time, it was reported that Fox had slashed Fantastic Four's budget by tens of millions before filming began. Trank revealed that the majority of the spectacle-filled finale had been cut, with plans to film the ending during reshoots instead. This meant that Frank went into production knowing that he wasn't going to be shooting a complete film, which only added to the stress. When the reshoots came, they suffered from scheduling issues that meant bringing the four leads in on weekends in an effort to cobble together a finale for the movie. Okay, so number two, new writers were hired for Fantastic Four reshoots, and Trank was ignored. Fantastic Four had a revolving door of writers, and the studio continued adding new names even after filming had begun. Jeremy Slater of Death Note originally worked with Trank on a script, but Trank insisted on acting as a buffer between Slater and the studio. Slater said that he wasn't allowed to speak with Fox unless Trank was present, and he never got about 95% of the studio script notes. Slater left the project after 6 months, at which point the studio brought in several other writers, including Seth Grahame-Smith and Simon Kinberg, to try and get the script ready for filming. During reshoots, the studio brought in even more writers to produce script pages. Frank wrote his own pages, but they were ignored. He compares the experience of filming the reshoots being castrated. As he said, quote, "You're standing there and you're basically watching producers blocking out scenes 5 minutes ahead of when you get there, having editors hired by the studio design the sequence of shots that are going to construct whatever is going on, and that is what that they need. And then because they know you're being nice, they'll sort of be nice to you by saying, well, does that sound good?" End quote. Number three, Trank's Fantastic Four director's cut doesn't fully exist. Though Trank managed to grit his teeth and play nice throughout the press tour of Fantastic Four, the first reviews of this movie broke him. Just before the movie opened right in theaters, he tweeted, quote, "A year ago, I had a fantastic version of this, and it would have received great reviews. You'll probably never see it, that's reality though," end quote. Well, this statement created the impression that a Trank cut of Fantastic Four exists out there somewhere. That's not exactly the case. According to Polygon, Trank did in fact strike a deal with Fox that would allow him to edit his own version of the movie, while veteran editor Steve Rifkin of Avatar worked on the studio version. Kingston realized that Fox had no intention of using his cut, but continued to edit it in the hopes that a few select scenes might be included in the final version. Ultimately, however, many of the scenes that Trank wanted to include in his movie were never even filmed, and a Trank cut of the movie doesn't exist in any complete form. Number four, Jeremy Slater wrote 18 scripts of Fantastic Four's screenplay. Screenplays often go through many different drafts before the shooting script is ready, and often there are a few more redrafts after that. Due to Trank acting like as a roadblock between Slayer and Fox, however, more than a dozen versions of Fantastic Four screenplay never even made it to the studio. Slayer estimates that he wrote almost 18 drafts of Fantastic Four in total, amounting to 2,000 pages of material. Though he departed after 6 months and many other writers came and went, Slayer told Polygon that the final version of Fantastic Four that ended up in theaters was essentially an expanded version of the 40 pages he'd initially written, but without the superheroics. Number 5, Trank's first Fantastic Four cut made Fox uncomfortable. From the start, Trank was not interested in making a traditional fun superhero origin story, and in fact Fox, which was looking for fresh creativity after the previous version of Fantastic Four, the ones by Tim Story, sputtered out, originally encouraged him to make Josh Trank's Fantastic Four. It seems clear that the studio had already started to lose confidence in this idea even before filming began, as evidenced by the slashing of the movie's budget and bringing in Fox's favorite screenwriter, Simon Kinberg, who was already shaping the X-Men fan base. Trank and Slayer had been divided on the script, since Slayer was a card-carrying comic book nerd who wanted to make something like the Avengers. According to Slayer, Trank had hated every fucking second of the Avengers and kept losing interest in the Fantastic Four script up to the point when the team got their powers and had to actually fight a comic book villain. The result of this effort to defy expectations of superhero movies was that when Fox executives saw the first cut of the movie, the grim tone of it made them uncomfortable. Trank said that was the goal, as was the general sense that it wasn't for the fans. But after seeing Josh Trank's Fantastic Four, Fox executives decided it was no longer what they wanted. Next up, Trank's onset.
I'm sorry. I just want to say something really quick. Way to ruin a director's vision like that, Fox.
Yeah, you see, it's essentially what happened to David Fincher with Alien 3, which resulted in a complete war fest of a film.
Yeah, and what Universal did this year with Doolittle, which is one of the worst movies I've seen this year.
Yeah, a movie where Universal pretty much did little to impress, no pun intended.
Yeah, really, especially the fucking Jesus Christ.
Yeah. All right, next up, Trank's onset tensions and troubles during Fantastic Four. After Fantastic Four's release, reports began coming out regarding what had exactly gone wrong on set, and they didn't paint a flattering picture of Trank. Among the claims was the detail that Trank's dogs did more than $100,000 worth of damage to the rented house he was staying in, that the director would often show up to set late, and that he was combative and hostile to the crew, producers, and even the stars. Polygon's article says that Trank pushed back on some of these reports when interviewed 8 months after Fantastic Four's release. Among the details he refuted was the claim that he built a black tank around his monitor and cut himself off from everybody. Trank says that the setup he had was actually a standard video village. It's pretty common on movie sets to have a monitor set up in a black tent. Trank did acknowledge the reports on his set his position. Due to the budget cuts and the studio's failing confidence. And early on in productions, one of his dogs died, which was a huge emotional blow. He was also unprepared to deal with young Miles Teller corresponding type A personality and ego, which did lead to friction between them, though Trank said that the report of a disagreement almost becoming physical was just a moment of miscommunication. The director said that while the studio didn't send him any specific complaints during the shoot, His communications to Fox President Emma Watts felt like he was reporting from the demilitarized zone, and war was constantly on the verge of breaking out. And last but probably least for him, Trank started work on his Boba Fett movie while making Fantastic Four. After the release of Chronicle in 2012, which is a pretty great movie, by the way, pretty overlooked.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I would say so.
Frank became one of the most in-demand new talents in Hollywood virtually overnight. He was attached to Sony's Venom for a while, was in line to adapt the spy thriller comic Red Star, and briefly worked on the video game Shadow of the Colossus. A few months before production began on Fantastic Four, Kim Berg, who worked for Lucasfilm as a consultant, asked if he was interested in pitching a Star Wars movie. Trank visited the house of George Lucas had lived in while writing the first draft of Star Wars, seeking inspiration, and returned from the walk with a 3-act pitch for a Boba Fett movie in mind. Trank had first garnered Hollywood attention with a simple but effective 5-second found footage viral video depicting drunken lightsaber violence at a party titled Stabbing at Leia's, so he already had Star Wars fan credentials. Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy and Disney Chairman Alan Horn liked his pitch, and he was announced as the new director for a non-saga Star Wars movie when Fantastic Four was midway through production. However, he quit the project a couple months before Fantastic Four's release, knowing that word of the movie's many problems would have reached the Riskiverse ears, Disney, and Lucasfilm. I quit because I knew I was going to be fired if I didn't quit, Trank explained. When the story made headlines, however, he was described as having been fired already. So yeah, it's pretty safe to say that this movie was a complete disaster in its production, not just in its production, but its release as well. Bombing at the box office and sweeping the Razzies.
Yeah, and you know what's really sad about this is that it had a lot of potential to be something different, as being as being a reboot of Marvel's First Family. But due to studio meddling, this is like, but due to studio meddling and production troubles, this is unfortunately what we got.
Yeah, pretty sad.
It is. It's pretty depressing when you really think about it, with all the drama behind the scenes and what went wrong and how did it go wrong. It's pretty depressing.
It really is. And speaking of movies that had wasted potential, my next topic has to do with the latest Star Wars movie, Rise of Skywalker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, personally, I like the movie fine as it is, but I will admit that it is a bit weak at certain parts, and it did have wasted opportunities that completely fell through. And I'm here to explain what I feel like are some wasted opportunities with The Rise of Skywalker. Okay, so my first wasted opportunity, Rose in general. I mean, sure, she got a lot of backlash after her role in Last Jedi, but I felt like the Rise of Skywalker should have treated her better, or at least made her a more fleshed out character. Maybe
I'm sorry.
Maybe even expand on her romance with Finn.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So my next missed opportunity has to do with C-3PO. So in the second act of the movie, it's been said that C-3PO has translations of a Sith language lost into a knife that the heroes found, but apparently he can't C3PO isn't authorized to translate it due to some programming. So they go to another planet to have his memory erased and have him authorized to read the transcription. Okay, so first of all, having C3PO as the evil villain, well, it had a whole bunch of opportunities laid out on the table, but I mean, he could have caused major problems with the crew late as the film went on. But no, instead, it's just that his eyes go red, he raised the saber, and then he shuts off and has his memory erased, only to have it completely healed 20 minutes later. So yeah, there went that plot point. For my next wasted opportunity has to do with General Hux. So
yeah, that was so wasted. Like what was the point of that?
Yeah, all the movie said that General Hux helped them escape and pretty much said, "I'm a spy." And then 2 minutes later, the Imperial guys find out and immediately shoot him right then and there. I mean, what was the point of that?
Seriously,
I mean, couldn't he have gone in a more I don't know big emotional way? I mean, you couldn't have had him sacrifice himself during the big climax or something. At least that would have been more emotional.
Yeah, it would have.
All right, next up is has to do with Chewbacca. You may remember the scene where Rey and Kylo were using the Force to fight over the ship that they thought was carrying Chewie, only for Rey to accidentally zap the ship, causing it to explode. And the heroes are like, "Oh no, Chewie is dead. How are we gonna evolve after that?" But no, 1 minute later, it said that Chewie was another ship and but is completely fine. I mean, I know I sound like an asshole who said. I know I sound like an asshole who said that Chewie should have died right then and there, but story-wise, it would have had some. It would have had some emotional weight, and Rey has. It would have had some emotional weight, like Rey has to think about the consequences of her powers. All right, so for my next wasted opportunity, what was up with that waste Sith clone? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, she showed up. I mean, when Rey was getting the Wayfinder, she saw the Sith clone, and she was like, "I'm your Sith clone. I'm here now." But then, not even 30 seconds later, she completely disappeared. Seriously. And for my next missed opportunity, I felt like Leia should have protected herself to convince Kylo Ren to turn to the light side instead of just projecting Han Solo into his memory. I felt like that would have been a better send-off to Leia's character and Carrie Fisher's career, but that's just me.
Yeah.
As for my next missed opportunity, I have two, and they both had to do with the climax. I mean, the space climax was fine, a bit generic, but serviceable enough. It's just the climax on the ground between Rey and Palpatine. First of all, Palpatine, it was said that, first of all, Palpatine said he had a bunch of followers standing right there. But that's how they've been doing throughout the climax. They were just standing there. I mean, couldn't they have just jumped down and attacked Rey and Ben and kept them from killing Palpatine?
Like, what was the point of that?
Yeah. And next up, in the scene where the Jedi Force Ghosts come into Rey's head, prompting her to get up and finish Palpatine once and for all. I think it would have been better if the Force Ghosts actually came in into the scene and had the huge, epic final battle between the aforementioned Palpatine crowd with the lightsabers. Wouldn't that have been a epic final battle for not just this movie, but the whole Star Wars franchise as a whole?
Yeah, really. It just made no sense.
Yeah, and for my final point is the ending. I mean, the ending. The ending I felt was okay, where Rey buried the two lightsabers, Leia and Luke's lightsabers, and then one of the locals asked her, "Who are you?" And Rey was like, "Rey Skywalker." And then she and BB-8 looked at the setting twin suns. I mean, that was okay, but I felt like it could have been something a bit more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's why I felt really rushed.
That's what I felt the ending should have been. I think it should have been Rey starting her own Jedi class to start over. Even have her pick up the Force-sensitive boy that we saw at the end of The Last Jedi. What?
Excuse me.
Doesn't that sound like a much better ending than the one we got?
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, that's it from what I felt like Rise of Skywalker should have done better. I mean, I still like the movie fine, but it's a bit felt like it's a bit underwhelming in the rest. And it is my second least favorite Star Wars movie behind Solo.
Yeah.
And now to cap out this episode of the FilmBrony Podcast, I'm going to rank all of the Academy Award Best Picture winners from the 2000s. So ranking all of them from Gladiator to The Hurt Locker.
And after he's done ranking the Best Picture winners, I'll go ahead and do my ranking as well.
All right. That's for my number 10. It was originally number 9, but the more I thought about it, the more I kind of had more fond memories of my current number 9 pick. Because, I mean, it's safe to say that it's the most controversial Best Picture winner. Number 10 is Crash. You wanted to say something?
What was number 10?
Crash.
Crash. That film. Look, it's well acted, and it does a very good job touching the subject of racism. and the cinematography is very well shot, but the script I felt was one of the biggest problems with the film. That's why I didn't love it as much as most people did, and why I do not think it deserves best. I'm pretty we're pretty much in agreement that it does not deserve to win Best Picture. Brokeback Mountain should have won.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. And I didn't even watch the movie, though I did read a short story in class one semester. And I will admit that that short story is much more emotional and heartbreaking than Crash ever is.
Yeah,
Even though my pick wasn't even nominated, Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins.
that was a great movie.
So yeah. As for my number 9, Chicago.
I really I love Chicago. While it wasn't the best film of 2002, it was a great film. And if you want a best movie of 2002, I know this is kind of controversial because of this director, but again, I like to separate. Most of the time, I love to separate the art. I usually separate the art from the artist most of the time. If you want the best picture of 2002, The Pianist.
Yeah, The Pianist. Pretty much the 2000s answer to Schindler's List. And yes, Roman Polanski did deserve that Oscar. I will fight you on this. Okay, yeah, not literally, but I will stand by this.
I'll stand by that too.
In spite of, yes, Roman Polanski did some terrible things, but that doesn't take away the fact that he's one of the greatest directors out there.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
And even though my favorite movie of 2002 was The Two Towers, but I felt like The Pianist should have won.
Yeah, that's also a great film too.
Okay, number 8, Million Dollar Baby.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I do too. Even though my pick was Martin Scorsese's The Aviator, but that doesn't take away the fact that
that's also a great film too.
But of course, that doesn't take away the fact of how well acted and heartbreaking Million Dollar Baby is.
Not to mention how well directed and well written it was.
Yeah. Number 7, A Beautiful Mind.
That's a great film. Personally, my favorite movie of 2001 wasn't nominated. That would be Mulholland Drive. But 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 other than that, A Beautiful Mind's a great film for sure.
My favorite film was either Fellowship of the Ring or Memento.
Yeah, Memento's another fantastic film too.
Number
Now
6.
that should have been like the Best Picture nominee.
Yeah, it should have. Anyways, number 6, The Hurt Locker.
One of my all-time favorite war films.
Even though my pick was for Best Picture was Pixar's Up. That should have been that I felt like should have been the first animated Best Picture winner. But
Up is a great film for sure.
But The Hurt Locker is still a pretty worthy movie to win Best Picture, regardless.
Yeah.
Number 5, Slumdog Millionaire.
That's like The Hurt Locker. That's also one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah, and of what's nominated, what was nominated, it was the best. But my favorite movie of not just 2008, but my all-time favorite movie of all time wasn't even nominated, The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight, the greatest superhero film, the greatest comic book film ever made, without a doubt.
And actually, going back to
That should have been nominated.
going back to the reader, why did they even nominate a movie that got like a 60% rating over movies like The Dark Knight, Gran Torino, Changeling, Wally, Kung Fu Panda?
The Reader wasn't even a good movie. Why nominate that?
I'll tell you why.
Again, just my opinion.
I'll tell you why. Because of Acne Wienerstein. Thank you for that, Nick.
Oh God, Harvey Wienerstein.
Yeah.
I said it once, and I'll say it again. Fuck Harvey Wienerstein.
Yeah. But moving on from that, number 4 is Gladiator.
A great movie for sure.
Number 3, No Country for Old Men.
Like Slumdog Millionaire and The Hurt Locker, No Country for Old Men is one of my all-time favorite movies. In fact, give me a second. No, give me a second while you keep on going.
Personally, I felt like it should have been a win-win scenario where both No Country for Old Men and Paul Thomas Anderson's movie There'll Be Blood, they both tied for Best Picture, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. So at least Daniel Day-Lewis got the Oscar.
Yay.
Okay. Like I've been
movies for sure.
Okay. Like I've been saying, I personally would have had No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood tied for Best Picture, but that's just me.
Both are great movies for sure. Yeah, both are great movies for sure. I mean, both are great in what they represent and what stories they try to go for. Both are amazing movies.
So yeah, for me, There Will Be Blood would have won Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Picture, while No Country would have won Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Picture, and they both tied for Best Picture. But that's just me.
Yeah, I get you.
Okay, number 2, The Departed.
The Departed, it deserves it. Absolutely deserves it. This is one of the best This is one of my favorite Martin Scorsese films of all time.
Yep, one of mine too. And number 1 is my second favorite movie of all time, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
Nice. Another great movie.
Okay, so that's it for my ranking. And let's hear your ranking, Nick.
Okay, well, number one for me would be Martin Scorsese's The Departed. One of my all-time favorite movies for sure. Number 2 is Slumdog Millionaire. Number 3, the Coen Brothers' No Country for Old Men. Number 4, The Hurt Locker. Number 5, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Number 6, hold on. Oh yeah, number 6, $1 Million Baby, directed by Clint Eastwood. Number 7, Gladiator. Number 8, Number 8, Chicago. Number 9,
Beautiful Mind.
Number 9, A Beautiful Mind is number 9, and then number 10, Crash.
So yeah, so I guess that does it for another episode of the FilmBrony Podcast. I know that we ended it a bit sooner than the last episode, but like I said, I really wanted to we didn't really have as much to go over, and I really wanted to go over it as quickly as possible so that Nick doesn't cut out due to his internet connection.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching the FilmBrony podcast. Be sure to subscribe on his Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Thank you guys for watching today's FilmBrony podcast episode 6. Be sure to subscribe to FilmBrony right here on his BoyThunder Productions channel. Give him the love he absolutely deserves. He makes such wonderful content, and hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thanks for watching.